This is Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video is lesson number 6 in our Back to Crochet Basics lessons. In today's lesson, I'm going to show you how to stitch a half double crochet in straight rows. I'm also going to show you how to change colors and how to sew a button onto your crochet project. Now, the way these lessons work is the first portion of the lesson is an explanation, or where I do my teaching and show you how to do what we're going to be doing. For instance, the half double crochet stitches. The second portion of this video will be a practice project that we can practice the things that we learned from the lesson portion. And our practice project is going to be this super fun coffee cozy. Some people call them koozies. Either way, they're fun to make. And we're going to learn to stitch half double crochets in straight rows. We're going to be changing colors. You can see this one is striped. And then sewing on a button to hold our koozie or cozy onto our coffee cup. There is a blog that goes along with our lessons. And you can find that link underneath this video in the notes. For the lesson portion of this video, you're going to need 2 different colors of worsted weight number 4 yarns. I still suggest you stick with the solid colors until you're comfortable with your stitching. If you want to use a variegated or a heather or something, that's totally fine. But if this is new to you and you're not comfortable with lots of colors going on, you might want to stick with some solids. These 2, the blue and this brown, are Red Heart with Love worsted weight number 4 yarns. We're going to still be stitching with our H hook, which is an H8, which is a 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle, and then you'll also need a pair of scissors for our lesson portion. All right, let's get started with the lesson portion of our video. I'm going to begin with one of my colors. I'm just choosing the blue. I'm going to make a slip knot, and we already know how to do that one. And I'm just going to chain 6 stitches. And we learned how to chain in lesson 1. Now, what we're going to do is stitch a half double crochet in the second chain from the hook. And the half double crochet is an interesting stitch. And I always say that when a single crochet is too short and a double crochet is too long, the half double crochet is just perfect. It's a shorter stitch than double crochet, and it's a little more compact. So we're going to go in the second chain from the hook. This is our first chain. We're going to yarn over our hook. We're going to go in that second chain and pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops that are on your hook. You're going to yarn over and then pull that through all 3 of those loops. That's a half double crochet. Let's go ahead and practice some more across. Now we chained 6 chains. We began in the second chain from the hook, so we're just going to have 5 half double crochets working across. So yarn over, we'll go in the next chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3 of those loops. All right, here's my 5th half double crochet. Sometimes in a pattern they'll have you chain 2, and your chain 2 will count as your first half double crochet. Sometimes they may have you chain 1, and your chain 1 does not count as a half double crochet. So be sure and do what the pattern tells you to do. We're going to chain 1. We're going to turn our work, And this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So we'll begin stitching in that first half double crochet. So we're going to stitch 1 half double crochet in each of the 5 half double crochets. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and count them to make sure we have enough or the right amount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we should have 5 half double crochets on this row because we had 5 double crochets on the row before. And that's how you make sure that your rows stay nice and even, is to make sure that you count and follow the pattern. Alright, now we're going to be changing colors. And we're not going to cut our yarn. This is going to be called trailing our yarn at the side. So we're going to take our second color and pull it in, and then chain 1. Now we chain 1 after the color change. Anytime that you're changing colors at the end of a row, make sure that you change your color and then do your chain 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever the pattern is telling you to do on the next row. So we've chained our 1, we're going to turn, and then we're going to place a half double crochet in each of those 5 stitches. Chain 1 and turn. And by doing the color change before the chain 1, we get nice even stitches and a nice even row. I'm going to move across this row, stitching 1 half double crochet in each of these stitches. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when we pull back our yarn where we're tailing it across, because we're not going to cut our yarn. When you're doing stripes, there we go, we're going to pull our yarn back up, snug it down, and you'll see there's some yarn going across there, and that's called trailing your yarn across. And then we would do more stitches, more rows, and then we'd bring the brown one back up. And that's how you do half double crochets in straight rows, changing colors, and trailing your yarn up the side. Now the other thing I wanted to show you is how to sew a button on. Let me grab a piece of yarn over here. Sewing a button onto a crochet item can be a little bit tricky. And so what you do is you take matching yarn for your project. A lot of people will say to use sewing thread, and I don't agree with that unless it's very thin yarn that you're using. And what I do is I place the button where I want it. I'm just going to stick it right there in the center so you can see what I'm doing. I come up through the back, but I make sure that I go through stitches, not the holes. And then we go through the hole of the button, and make sure you have a needle that's small enough to get through your holes of your button. And then I'll go back where I came, and I'll make sure that I go through stitches, not holes. Here's that tail. I'm going to leave that there. And then I'll go back through as many times as I think is needed for that button to stay put. If it's a decorative button, you may not have to put as many rounds of yarn through. But if it's something that's going to be used a lot, you're going to want to do 4 or 5 of those going back and forth, making sure that you go through yarn stitches, not holes. And then all I do to hold it on is I'll make 2 knots like this, and make sure you have nice long tails. And then I'll take those 2 and do, I don't know what this knot's called, but I do it where it twists, and I pull both of those through. push that as close as I can, and then I'll cut it. Now, if, depending on what you're putting this on, that you're worried that that's going to come undone, you can add a little dab of hot glue or fabric glue to keep it from coming undone. But I'll have to tell you, I've never had any of them come undone. Alright, so that's how we half double crochet in rows, change colors, trail our yarn up the side, and sew on a button. I think we're ready for our practice project now. For today's practice project, we're going to be making this coffee cozy or koozie that fits a standard size coffee cup. To make the koozie, you're going to need 2 colors of worsted weight number 4 yarn, and I'm just going to stick with these 2 colors that I used in the lesson. We're going to be stitching with an H hook, 5.00 millimeter. You'll need a needle, and you'll need a button that's about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and of course you'll need those scissors. The coffee cozy is basically a long rectangle that we're going to stitch striped. Then we'll single crochet across the top. We'll be adding this button loop, and of course we'll sew on a button. We're going to make our slip knot, and then we're going to chain 10 chains. In this project, the chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so we're going to begin stitching in the second chain from the hook. Yarn over, there's our first chain, we'll go in the second chain and stitch 1 half double crochet, and then we'll stitch 1 half double crochet in each of the chains across. Now, because we started in the second chain from the hook, we're going to have 9 half double crochets because we started with 10. We began in the second chain from the hook, so we're only going to have 9 half double crochets. I'm going to chain 1. And before I do that, let's go ahead and count our stitches. So our chain 1 didn't count, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 half double crochets. We chained 1 and we're going to turn. And now we're going to half double crochet in each of those 9 half double crochets. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8, 9. Now I chained 1, but I'm going to take it out because we're going to change colors. I've got my blue already here. Pull the blue through, snug that down, and chain 1. Now remember, do not cut this yarn. We're going to trail it up the side. So we'll turn and we'll stitch 1 half double crochet in each of the 9 half double crochets. making sure we only stitched 9 stitches. Chain 1 and turn, and then we'll repeat that. 1 half double crochet in each of the 9 half double crochets. So there's 4 rows, 2 of each color. We're going to bring back in our beige. So I'm going to put it over my hook, pull it through, snug that down, and chain 1. We'll turn, and again, we'll make 9 half double crochets. This whole project, for the most part, is stitched in half double crochet rows, changing colors every 2 rows, and trailing that yarn up this side. So it's a perfect practice project for working with half double crochets. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Chain 1 and turn. Now, because we're doing every other row, all the trailing will be on one side, and that's the side that will be the top of the coffee mug or coffee cup koozie. So again, I'm placing 1 half double crochet in each half double crochet across. So I'm back to this end again. I'm going to pull my blue yarn back up, snug it down, and chain 1. Now when you're trailing your yarn across the side like this, you want to make sure that it's not too loopy but not too tight. And I always kind of give it a little bit of a pull and make sure that it's not going to droop and not be too tight. Alright, so now we're going to do 2 more rows in the blue, 1 half double crochet in each half double crochet across, chain 1 and turn and repeat. Here we go. When you're trailing your yarn like we're doing on this project, it can seem a little bit clumsy. So it's a good idea to maybe get a yarn bowl, or maybe just have those 2 skeins right in front of you instead of to the side or something, so that you can keep your strings, or your yarns I mean, from getting tangled. Chain 1 and turn. 9 half double crochets. Join our beige yarn back in and chain 1. And this is what you're going to do. We have 2, 4, 6, 8 rows, and you're going to continue to do this till you have 22 rows. And remember, 2 rows is 2 blue, 2 brown, 2 blue, 2 brown, back and forth, repeating 2 blue, 2 brown, or whatever colors that you're using, until you've reached 22 rows. I've completed the 22 rows, which gives us 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 rows. And you can see we have 2 rows of each color. And our yarn on the side here, you can see that I've trailed it across, and the bottom doesn't have any because we changed colors always on this row. Alright, so what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and cut the blue yarn, leaving ourselves enough so we can weave that in when we're done. And now we're going to work down the side here with single crochets, stitching over all of this yarn that we trailed across. So we're just going to let this blue string kind of hang for now because we're going to weave that in a second. We chained one, and the way that we do this is we try to put a single crochet in the last stitch of each row. And just a reminder of what a single crochet is you go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. And you want this to be nice and even, and make sure that we go over those threads that we trailed across. So I'm going to go in, put one at the end of this blue row, one at the end of this blue row. And we do the same thing on the brown, going around the stitch. And you can see how that's worked across. We're going right over that yarn that we trailed across and trying to put one single crochet in the last stitch of each of our rows. And since we have 22 rows, we want to have about 22 single crochets across. Now, if you accidentally added one or subtracted one, it's not going to hurt anything. Just really look at it and eyeball it and make sure that it's nice and even. Because this is actually going to be the top of our coffee mug or coffee cup, cozy or koozie. And just make sure you're grabbing those strings. We don't want any of them hanging out, messing up our look of our beautiful little project. Okay, we're almost up to the corner. We'll just move that string out of the way and we'll weave that in a minute. Alright, so now we're at the corner. And on this end, we're going to add our button loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another single crochet in that first stitch, and then we'll stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to chain 12, and then we'll come right back down here and we'll stitch a single crochet in the next stitch there, and then we'll stitch 4 more single crochets. So that's 2, 3, 4, and then one right here in the last one is 5. And there's our button loop. We're going to go ahead and cut our yarn and tie that off. And that's the way that it should look. We've done our single crochet down the top, and then we have our button loop. We have a few strings that we need to tie in, and the way you do that is you thread that on your needle, and you just go through stitches. I have a little hole there, so I'm just going to close that one up. There we go. And we'll go one way going through stitches. Came undone there. and then we'll go back the other way. And it's good to do it 2 or 3 times. And that's why you need to leave yourself just a little bit of yarn so that you can do that. Now this corner one, there we go, we'll thread that on and we just go right in the side, go through some stitches, one way, go back the other, making sure that you go through the stitches and also if you try to go through some of the fibers of the yarn, that helps also in making it stay. Alright, I'm going to take a couple more minutes and finish tidying up this up, and then I'm going to show you how to sew that button on and put it on to your coffee mug. I've tidied everything up, all the ends are all tidy and neat, and this is the top of your mug cozy where we did the single crochet row over those stitches. And so what you're going to need to do is put it on your mug, and decide where you want your button. Now you want this to be snug so it doesn't slide off. So I'm going to put my button right about here. So I'm going to use this same pretty button that I used in our demonstration. Set it right about there. We're going to come in through the back, through a stitch. Take 2. We're going to come in through the back, going through a stitch, not a hole, because we want it to stay secure. Because if we're going to be using this a little bit and maybe putting it through the laundry, we definitely want it to stay put. Alright, I'm going to go through the second hole, going through another stitch. Leave yourself a tail here for sewing or knotting in place. And I'm just going to go through this as many times until I think that it's on there nice and secure. 3 or 4 or 5 times, because we do not want the button popping off when we're in the middle of drinking a cup of coffee, huh? Alright, so I think it's on there nice and secure. So I'm going to take these 2 ends, tie 2 knots like that. Shorten this one so I can tie it. And then I do that other knot that I do. I kind of wrap it around my thumb, and then I bring it up from the bottom and snug that down. Clip that off. And like I said, if you feel like you want to put a little dot of frayed check or fabric glue or hot glue, you can. I don't. I've never ever had one come off. So here's your coffee koozie. We're going to put the loop through the handle, make sure your single crochet row is at the top, and button it on. And now you have a super cute cozy or koozie for your coffee mug or cup. Perfect way to practice your half double crochet stitches and make a bunch of gifts for your friends. Now you could add some decorative buttons, a bow or anything, a flower, anything you wanted to make it extra special if you want to give it to a friend. But like I said, it's the perfect way to practice your half double crochet stitches.